A few months ago, this suburban special ed teacher was in kidney failure. But she got good news that changed her life. She moved up the transplant list and got a new kidney.
Yes, I was ecstatic.
After 6 years on the wait list, Helena Fields was moved up on the list due to a change as to how African American kidney function was evaluated. Fields says her joy was tempered by the reality of the situation.
I was just shocked, really, and part of me, of course, was grateful that they were fixing it, but, still, it was very annoying to know that this still exists in this day and time.
Previously, EGFR, a key blood test to determine kidney function, factored in race, putting African Americans in a healthier status and putting them farther down the wait list. But a task force with the American Society of Nephrology and the National Kidney Foundation found that was flawed. Now race has been taken out of the equation. Nationwide, 14,000 African Americans have been moved up the kidney transplant list, and locally, 1,200 African Americans are still waiting for a kidney.
People, they do think, is this real? Is this, many people didn't know it existed.
Monica Fox is the Senior Director of Outreach for the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois. She says the recommendation to change the formula was made 2 years ago. And as healthcare systems implement the change, they have been increasingly hearing from surprised patients getting news they've been moved up the transplant list.
It is something that seems ridiculous to think that it existed for as long as it did. But when you think about the history of our country and everything that goes with that, it's not surprising.
I think that we need to work more on trying to fix these inequalities and just, consider us as one human race, especially when it comes to healthcare.
Fields says while she is glad to see more African Americans getting needed kidney transplants, she thinks of those who unnecessarily died waiting for a kidney as she could have.
Watch breaking news on YouTube. Subscribe to ABC7 Chicago Eyewitness News.
If y'all remember a short while ago, I did a video talking about Robert F. Smith. Well, I don't know if it wasn't a video. It was a community tab post that I had made pertaining to Robert F. Smith. And he was talking about the racial disparities in people on the kidney transplant list and how they were trying to adjust that. When I heard about this story, I immediately thought of that particular post. Unfortunately, there was some people under that post that couldn't see past who he was married to, so they focused more on that, unfortunately, instead of the task at hand. So this story right here is coming out of Illinois, out of Chicago, where you have this woman that you see on your screen, her name is Helena Fields, and they said she was having kidney failure. And the thing is, I actually know someone personally who had kidney failure years ago. Fortunately for them, they were able to get a transplant, and now they're doing much better. And even with that, that's, you still have to make sure that everything is on the up and up. I actually know another family friend personally who had problems with their kidneys, and they were able to get a transplant, but they pretty much have to be on medication for the rest of their lives in order to avoid having to go to dialysis. And also too, my grandmother, she has a problem with her kidneys as well, and at her age she might be on dialysis for the rest of her life, because also getting the transplant could be risky depending on your age, and my grandmother is in her 80s, so her getting the transplant at her age is either going to be difficult because of her age, and also difficult because, let's say there's a match, it's always a risk there with the surgery itself. So she might have to be on dialysis until it's a wrap for her, so to speak. So I found this to be very interesting, that when it comes to these transplant lists, and I actually believe it goes even further beyond just the kidney transplant. I think it might be the same for any organ that a black person needs to get, is how far down the list they typically are when they do it based on race. And when I'm listening to this, I'm thinking that this is a brand new thing, like something that just popped up maybe this month. But when I was looking it up, this actually got implemented back in April. They implemented the elimination of race off of these transplant lists back in April, as far as black people being on a waiting list. And how ironic, the minute that they eliminated race off of the criteria, They said over 14,000 black patients shot up the list immediately. How ironic is that? And people keep trying to say there isn't a system in place. You have these same individuals out here that keep telling people to stop making everything about race, stop making everything about race. But the minute that they stop making everything about race, such as in this situation, look at what happened to the black people that were able to get a kidney or shoot up the list with the possibility of receiving one. That means they have been stuck down there at the bottom of that list for God knows how long, while everyone else was able to receive. And like they said also in the audio, the unfortunate part about this whole situation is that there are many black people that did not survive because they waited for so long and their kidney just gave out to beyond repair, and they ended up dying, unfortunately, before they had a chance to get the transplant. And that's just the sad part and the sad situation about how everything just plays itself out. But like I said, this is the system at place. This is the system at play here. This is the system working as per usual. But you got the usual suspects out here trying to tell people that it's not this and it's not that. Of course, they'll say that because the system works for them. And if it doesn't work for them, then I don't know what to tell you, because that's what the system is there for. That's what your forefathers, the forebears, and your clan ancestors did. And if it's working against you, I don't know what to tell you. I know for this, I do know what to tell you. I don't feel bad for you. But I'm glad that this woman was able to receive her kidney. But like she said, it's bittersweet, because yes, while she's glad she ended up getting her surgery and her transplant, there are thousands on top of thousands of others that came before her that did not receive it and unfortunately lost their lives behind it. That's the unfortunate circumstance that we are in when it comes to these transplants of any kind, of any sort. I even wanted to look at what was the racial disparity of kidney transplants based on race, and according to what I found from a place called the American Kidney Fund, it says that 43% in 2020, that is, 43% of all kidney transplant recipients in the U.S. were white, while 26% were black and 18% were Hispanic. Now imagine now, 4 years later, they probably wouldn't have the data on it now because it just happened, where black people sit now that they've removed race from it. But here's the thing, we'll never know, because by them removing race, those numbers look very different now, and you won't have an actual breakdown based on race because they removed it. So that was 2020. Imagine what it looks like in 2024, but it'll only just be an imagination, because if they don't have race on there, you'll never have a definitive number. They'll just say, oh, this is how many people got a kidney transplant this year. They'll just have to go based on raw numbers. Now, of course, for data purposes, they ended up saying that over 14,000, almost, I think it was like 14,280 black people shot up the list. That's a lot of people that were just sitting, waiting, not realizing they could have been near the top of that list the whole time. Imagine that. And this is why why they created that system. This right here proves without the shadow of a doubt why they need a racial system in place. Because if it was fair and balanced like they claim things are, this what happened here would be the natural occurrence. But we all know it's nothing natural about the usual suspect. Everything they do is rooted in basically being very artificial and nothing being truly organic.